We live in a complex world, and the ease with which we are able to access so many things, which is mind-blowing. Like take phone for example. As you can see, each and every part of the phone comes from different ends of the world. And the supply chain gets more complex if we break down these parts into more subparts. And this is all possible because at any time there are millions of ships of the size of the city sailing throughout the world. These routes are so critical that any issue in the flow of traffic brings the world to the halt. No wonder there are few countries that got from rags to riches because of their strategic location. One prime example will be Singapore. A small island country with very little agricultural land and poor GDP got to be the economic powerhouse. Thanks to its geographical location, it is filled with small clusters of islands, making it the perfect pass-through path to the upcoming globalized world that will be very dependent on the efficient trade routes. In fact, by the sheer amount of the volume trade only, it tops the list of 5 great streets of the world, or rather choke points of the world trade. In logistics, whoever controls the choke points controls the flow of the trade, and the Strait of Malacca tops the list with 30% of the maritime trade passing through it. But just above it, there is another possibility brewing, which is this region, known as the Isthmus of Kra, aka the Devil's Snake. So we'll be talking about the world-altering sea trade route that never happened. Today, MBFI'd will take you the journey of one of the most important sea trade routes that could have turned the geopolitics of Asia, especially Singapore, upside down, and why suddenly it has become the point of contention between the regional powers of the Asia, and how did it got to the point of going nuclear. The Kra Isthmus, a mere 44 km at its thinnest point, would make it absolute, the current necessity for navigating south, connecting Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean directly. And this is not something new. The first proposal of Kra Canal was made in 1677 by French engineer M. de la Mare, but it got delayed because the Chinese kingdom had become the bone of contention between the two colonial powers, France and England. The British made a secret agreement with the Siamese kingdom, which deprived it of its right to develop a canal through the Isthmus of Kra without the British consent. This British imperial policy of no development continued throughout the 20th century. The 1946 Anglo-Thai Treaty, Article 7, states the Siamese government undertook that no canal linking the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Siam shall be cut across Siamese territory without the prior concurrence of the government of the United Kingdom. At the end of World War II, the Siamese government, which had allowed the Japanese to occupy the country rather than waging a pointless and bloody defense, was forced to impose even stricter limits on its economic development. Ironically, United States was against this. It was seeing huge opportunities in Siam's rice and certain other exports commodities now in short supply in the world. Since then, there have been many revisions in the project, but one that got the world's attention was the nuclear one. The Prime Minister of Thailand said that it would take 10 years the conventional way, but with nuclear, it can be done in 5. The idea grabbed the attention of multiple nations, including US and Japan. Interestingly, both of them agreed to the plan, which was to use 20 nuclear devices which were twice the size of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. This was done under the US program called Operation Plowshare, which was in place from 1961 to 77, and it focused on the development of techniques to use nuclear explosion for peaceful purpose, but was shut down as environmentalists resisted. Now, the geopolitics of it is as complicated as it can be, as the major stakeholders will be Singapore, for which this will be the zero-sum game, aka win or lose kind of situation. Same would be the case with Malaysia, as a major chunk of the traffic will be directed through Isthmus, and what will be left for them will be Australia and Indonesia, whereas Myanmar, Cambodia, and Vietnam would benefit greatly from the canal. The Thai canal would reduce the cost of sea-based trade significantly for Myanmar. Cambodia is already expected to galvanize economic growth along its coastal cities via mega projects. Vietnam, which still receives 90% of its consumable goods and commodities via sea, could find itself on a track to rival Singapore as a major Asia-Pacific trading hub. But one country that is hoping to gain the most is China, which we do not need to mention is making others nervous. China relies heavily on Malacca Strait for its maritime trade and has shown considerable interest in the project. An alternative route could diversify Beijing's option and cut transit times and costs. And even after the costs associated with the project are astronomical, with an estimated price tag of $55 billion, China seems to be unwavering in its resolve. India's concerns, however, extend beyond immediate economic and strategic considerations. Citing the example of Sri Lanka's Hambantota port and Pakistan's Gwadar port, both of which were conceded to China under debt obligations. Indian authorities have expressed worries about what they describe as debt diplomacy from China. India's concerns aren't military, as India still has the power to block the trade route of Isthmus of Kra. However, India worries that China would own the project and would leverage it in general scenario, which is about 99.9% of the time. However, the Thailand is not convinced with the original plan. The current plan appears to be building two deep water ports on opposite coasts of the country, connected by highways and railways. And China seems to be getting ahead in this project too. However inefficient it is, because this plan is not feasible in terms of cost or time. So it is kind of obvious that China is playing along, hoping that Thailand would come to the agreement to the old plan and China may finally get its way.